Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Night. Watchtower. The surface of the moon appeared as brilliant as always, showering the earth with a silvery radiance, but on this particularly warm and unusually peaceful day, the moon was glowing even more dazzlingly. It was as if the celestial body was almost quivering with barely concealed excitement and anticipation. Anticipation of what? No one knew. This kind of spectacle had been reported to transpire every 2 centuries in the history of the world, making it a must-see for everyone. All the inhabitants of the Earth were no doubt transfixed on the glowing surface of the moon. The floating station of the Earth's mightiest heroes was hovering peacefully around the planet. Superman and Batman were standing near the edge of the tower and gazing at the wonderful and peaceful glow of the moon through the glass windows. It wasn't always like this. With their lives and crime-fighting duties, it was practically impossible to see such sights. "It's quite peaceful tonight," Batman voiced softly, a complete opposite of his grumpy and serious voice as he gazed at the glowing moon. "It sure is," Superman nodded with a small smile. "I hope some idiotic villain doesn't take this as an opportunity to launch an attack and ruin the moment." "That would be quite annoying indeed," the caped Dark Knight agreed. "Clark, I was hoping to have a word with you regarding the sidekicks." Clark chuckled when he heard the oddly funny name, sidekick, considering one could easily mistake for a form of kick. "Yeah, what about them?" "They are getting quite impatient. I was thinking of forming a team consisting of them with one of us as their superior," Bruce stated with a grimace, recalling the last time Robin had ranted to him about not keeping his promise. "The missions will be given by whoever is designated to be in charge of them, making it essentially our duty to give them missions suitable to their talents. Missions where they cannot be harmed." "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" Clark asked with a knowing smile. "Hard not to when an impatient teenager is screaming in your ears 24/7, Batman grumbled. Clark chuckled good-naturedly. Bruce joined in after a few seconds, not able to keep his amusement hidden from the Man of Steel. "I think it would be a great idea. We are not getting any younger. One day we'll have to relinquish our duties to them. With the establishment of this team, they will gradually grow accustomed to the duty of fighting crime." Clark agreed. "They would require a base of operation. I think our former headquarters, Mount Justice, would suffice." "I agree. What would be the name of the team? Sidekick Justice or something?" Superman asked with a grin. "No need to be funny, Clark. This is serious," Batman retorted with a scowl. "Lighten up a little, Bruce." "I'm always lightened up," Bruce commented sarcastically, causing Superman to give him a strange look. "That was a very weird comeback from someone like you," the Dark Knight glared daggers at the grinning Superman. "In any case, I think Young Justice would be an appropriate name, considering they are teenagers." Overhearing a snort from his side, he spun around with a glare and saw Clark whistling innocently. "You have a problem with the name, Clark?" "Nope." "Good. Young Justice it is then. Who will supervise them?" Clark asked with a cough, getting over the funny name. "We'll discuss that in the upcoming meeting. Which also reminds me we should get moving lest we arrive late. I don't know about you, but I don't want my reputation to take a hit by being late to a meeting." Batman started for the gate and looked over his shoulder at the prone figure of Superman gazing at the moon intently. "Something the matter, Clark?" "No. Just wondering why the moon is shaking." Bruce gave him a strange look, prompting Clark to explain. "You can't see it because you don't have enhanced eyesight. But it just may be my imagination." "Let's go before I summon a doctor to examine your head," Batman stated bluntly and walked out from the room followed by a frowning Superman. "What was that distortion I was seeing?" The Man of Steel gave the glowing moon one last look and walked out of the room, deep in thought. Inside the moon, a solitary figure was striding through a dimly lit intricate corridor, adorned with dazzling stones and crystals of distinctive shades deep inside the moon. The figure was a commandingly giant and muscular brown-haired male garbed in a golden and crimson armor. The armor was consisting of 2 golden shoulder pads, a gleaming crimson chest piece covering his torso, golden wristbands wrapped around his hands up to his elbows, leaving his muscular arms bare, and a set of black boots covering his feet. Under the armor, a black coat with black pants could be seen. The giant male did not pay any attention to his shuddering surrounding, dutifully concentrating on a glowing massive gate at the end of the corridor. The door was crimson in color with a colossal tree design engraved on it. The figure quickened his pace when the door glowed even brightly, lighting the whole corridor in a blinding red. The tall figure reached the gate just as the light reduced considerably and vanished slowly. Without knocking on the door, the brown-haired man calmly pushed the massive door away and entered cautiously. The inside of the room was pretty simple than the outside considering it was located in another dimension. The room itself was filled with every kind of dark color stretching as far as the eyes could see, with a large circular black bed floating in the middle. Reaching the center of the room, the figure kneeled as the bed slowly floated down and touched the distorted floor with a soft thud. "Sire, it's time for you to awaken," the tall man stated firmly and maintained his kneeling posture with one hand on his chest and the other on the ground in servitude. A soft groan was heard followed by the sound of movements of the bedsheets as the stoic figure tensed in anticipation, the ground underneath trembling even harder as it waited for the master to wake up. A large humanoid hand followed by two similar feet peeked out of the black covers as the aforementioned master slowly peeled the sheets off his body and sat up. Sliding towards the edge of the bed, the man's feet touched the ground as he stood up to an intimidating height. As soon as his feet came into contact with the surface, the trembling and shuddering of the moon ceased altogether as if finally in peace. "Has it been 2 centuries already, Okayan?" The deep resounding voice of the tall man snapped the kneeling figure known as Okayan out of his dazed state as he looked at his master. The man, seemingly in his mid-20s, was very tall, standing at an abnormal 8 feet, 3-inch height with a magnificently muscular body, stone-like bulging biceps, and broad muscular torso. Silky blood-red hair let loose over his back reaching up to the back of his knees with thin bangs draped over the 2 sides of his ethereal face. Twin diamond-like narrow blue eyes filled with concealed amusement and mirth gazed at the kneeling servant. He was dressed in a black sleeping robe with the buttons on the chest undone, revealing his chiseled nude torso. The most attention-grabbing feature about the giant man was the 2 black horns adorned atop his head like a majestic crown. Okayan shivered from the sheer potency of his presence alone. No matter how many millennia he had spent serving his master, he still found it hard to even breathe in his presence. The tall stature and the physical perfection of his body along with his piercing blue eyes and majestic black horns demanded nothing but absolute servitude. What made him even more obedient to his master was his kindness and his generous heart. The power he possessed in his pinky could wipe out an entire planet in the blink of an eye, yet his heart was filled with nothing but kindness. All this time he had spent with him, never once had he demanded anything from any of his guards or anyone else. "Yes, my lord," the now identified Okayan responded obediently. "No need to be so formal, Okayan, you can simply call me Naruto," the tall redhead chuckled softly. "My apologies, sire, but I simply cannot address you short of what you truly deserve," Okayan stated loyally. Naruto shook his head, realizing it was futile to change his mind. The man was stubborn that way, even more so than his eldest son. "Well, seeing as I can't change your mind, I believe I should probably take a shower before we get to the matters of the world," the master of the palace stated calmly and moved towards the left side of the infinite room, the wall distorting away to reveal a spacious bathing chamber. "As you wish, sire. I'll depart and notify the chefs to prepare a feast for you." Okayan gave one last bow and left the chamber. An hour later Naruto exited the bathroom dressed in a red skin-tight shirt, a long red coat with large red and black tree design on the back, reaching to his knees, black leather pants with a brown belt and red combat boots with metal guards reaching up to his knees. Draped over his broad shoulders was a large crimson fur cap with 2 red shoulder pads and red metal wristbands up to his elbows. He looked around his personal chamber and softly shook his head in resignation. Okayan was already there kneeling on the ground with his head bowed. "Your Eminence, the chefs have prepared the feast and are awaiting your arrival." "At ease, Okayan. Let us go." Naruto smiled kindly and walked out of the room with such grace and elegance it looked as if he was gliding over the surface. Okayan nodded and followed after his master stoically. Naruto strolled through the Crystal Palace towards the large dining room followed by Okayan, the doors of the room sliding away to reveal the dining chamber. The inside of the room was quite simple but large, with a great crimson gem hanging from the ceiling, bathing the whole room in a red hoe and a large table with spacious crystals chairs in the middle of the room. Naruto entered the dining room followed by Okayan, The standing chefs snapped into attention and bowed their heads as Naruto walked up to his chair and sat down. The table was filled with every type of food a man could desire, a meal befitting of a king. The chefs had really outdone themselves. Seeing as Okayan stood beside his chair and the chefs excused themselves from the room, he smiled softly. "Okayan, my boy, sit down and tell me all about the world situation during my slumber." "Sire, my place is to stand beside you, not consider myself as your equal," the stoic man exclaimed. "Okayan," Naruto started calmly, "how many times do I have to tell you to not use formalities with me? We are long past that stage. Sit down and eat. This meal is more than I can eat." "As you wish, my lord. It seems the world has changed far more than I had anticipated," Naruto commented lightly as he floated to his throne room. They had eaten their meal with the usual dilemma of Naruto trying and failing to make Okayan stop calling him sire, and all those formal names. Okayan had explained the situation of the world below and Naruto had to admit, it was far more complicated and worse than before. The throne room was situated at the back of the palace at the top floor facing the vast landscape and forest inside the moon. The outside of the moon could be seen as nothing but a round silver ball of sand and stones, but on the inside, it was a land of lush and green grass and dense forests stretching as far as the eye could see with large blue lakes and rivers. Naruto had collected any and all endangered species of animals and plants and had nurtured them in the moon. You could find any kind of animals and plants your heart desired, from animals as small as ants to as tall as skyscrapers. The 2-story tall sentinels covered in golden armor from head to toe with enormous axes, standing at the door of the throne room bowed to the king and opened the great golden gates with vines-like designs engraved on it. The gates opened to reveal a dimly lit, large hall-like room with a crystal staircase leading up to a pedestal in the middle of the room, where a large crimson throne was situated. The room had gold and blood-red pillars located in a row to the sides, with a large red carpet leading to the front of the stairs. The wall behind the throne was a clear red transparent glass, lighting the throne room in a dim red hue and enabling the king to watch over his domain. Made from gleaming black and red crystals with a modified cushion and 2 circular globes as armrest, the throne was a work of art itself. Naruto floated through the large room, up the stairs to his throne and sat down while Okayan stood beside the large throne stoically. Yes, the heroes try their best to subdue the villains but make a critical error of judgment in the end. Would I be correct in assuming that these villains are sent to some kind of containment structures instead of being dealt with? Yes, sire. The villains are sent to jails to atone for their crimes. While the heroes' decisions to leave them at the hands of the government are noble, it's their belief in second chances that eludes me, Okayan explained calmly. I believe it's their desire to not become executioners, considering themselves to be below the law, Naruto explained calmly and revolved the throne around to gaze out of the large window at his vast domain. While it's a very honorable quality, on the other hand, it's their greatest weakness. From what you have informed me about these criminals, many of them have one reason or another for committing transgressions, and while I don't approve of foul play, they at least have a purpose for doing what they do. And the others? Okayan inquired interestedly. His master always had a distinctive outlook and way of thinking than others regarding many issues of the world. The others basically commit crime for the fun of it. This Joker character, for instance, is undeserving of second chances regardless of the tragedies of his past. Their show of mercy regarding some of these villains is admirable, but the rest needs to be dealt with permanently. Regrettably, that is one action this band of heroes cannot seem to take, the tall man stated with a small frown while Naruto smiled softly. What is the name of this band of heroes? It's called the Justice League. An interesting name, ironic even. They refer to themselves as the upholders of justice, yet refuse to kill for the sake of justice, the red head voiced out with a subtle hint of amusement. They wouldn't happen to operate from that floating station in Earth's orbit, would they? Affirmative, Your Highness. They call it the Watchtower. A place where they can protect the Earth from both outside and inside threats, the brown-haired man replied dutifully. Naruto hummed in thought and eyed a small bird feeding an even smaller hatchling in a massive tree outside the Crystal Palace. Okayan, what would you say to the concept of me consolidating with this group of heroes? The red-headed king asked curiously, without looking at his devoted right-hand man. He knew that the stoical man appeared to be mulling it over, obviously searching for appropriate words to both answer the question and not offend him. Seeing as he couldn't come up an appropriate answer, Okayan bowed slightly and replied, "My opinion on the matter is of no importance, sire. My job is to follow and serve you." Naruto chuckled softly and shook his head in resignation. "It's settled then. I would join this band to see what the world is like now and to cut a few loose ends. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to study the present world." "As you wish, sire." Watchtower, conference room. "This meeting is hereby called to order," Batman announced as he, Superman and Wonder Woman stood in front of a large U-shaped table in the watchtower high above the earth. All the members of the Justice League were in attendance, sitting around the table, from the senior members up to the most recent members. The objective of the conference is to think over the prospect of an undercover squad involving the sidekicks, Wonder Woman began. "As all of you know, there are certain problems that goes right under our noses, create situations that we cannot solve with sheer brute strength or power alone. Situations that require information that needs to be gathered before it can be solved. The purpose of the team will be to gather info and deal with small problems," the Man of Steel continued where Diana had left. The three senior members returned to their seats as the meeting began. While the formation of such teams certainly has merit, it would need a base of operation and supervision from one of us, Aquaman stated loudly and looked around the table for agreement. "Superman has petitioned our former headquarters to be an appropriate base of operation for the team. As for the designation of a supervisor, we will vote on it," Batman responded evenly. "I volunteer as a supervisor." Captain Marvel raised his hand pleasantly. Working with boys almost his age would be fun. The Justice League members, while powerful and unique, were far too stiff and uptight in his opinion. "We will take it into consideration," Superman stated firmly. "Name of the team?" Flash asked curiously and raised an eyebrow when he saw Superman trying to mask his amusement. Was the Man of Steel actually trying not to grin? The name couldn't be that bad, could it? "Young Justice," the Dark Knight replied and directed a discreet glare at an innocently smiling Superman. "If no one has anything to say, I believe it's time to vote. All oppose?" No one raised their hands. The formation of the team had more ups than downs. "All in favor?" Everyone raised their hands at once. Batman nodded in approval. "It's decided. Team Young Justice is hereby formed. Now for the designation of a supervisor. I myself will be handing out missions appropriate to their talents. We need someone to supervise them. Any volunteers?" "I volunteer to be their supervisor," Red Tornado said in his monotone robotic voice. "Good, now we..." Incoming transmission, a robotic voice interjected as a wide screen appeared in front of the Leaguers and showed the image of a black-haired female, the attendant of the Justice League earthly base, Catherine. "Sorry to interrupt, but a red-haired man calling himself Destiny seeks an audience with the Justice League." "Motives?" Batman asked seriously. "Unknown. Where is he?" Superman asked curiously. "Who would intentionally want an audience with the League?" "Sitting in the waiting room in the Hall of Justice." "All right. Meeting adjourned for now. The rest will be discussed upon our return along with this new individual. I, Wonder Woman and Superman will go and meet this Destiny character," Batman declared seriously and stood up from his chair. The Man of Steel and Wonder Woman followed after the Dark Knight as he stepped into the Zeta beam tube. Hall of Justice, DC. Superman, Wonder Woman and Batman paced into the waiting room and saw a tall and muscular red-haired man in his mid-20s wearing a crimson skin-tight shirt, black leather pants with 2 red lines and red combat boots reaching up to his knees. He was wearing a long blood-red cap kept on his shoulders by 2 shoulder pads, and red segmented wristbands reaching up to his elbows. His long silky blood-red hair was stretching up to the small of his back while 2 thin bangs hung over his narrow blue eyes. All in all, he was quite intimidating and admittedly otherworldly handsome. The tall red-headed man walked up to them as soon as they entered the room and smiled softly. "Greetings. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, a pleasure to meet you." Diana eyed the strange man with a judicious gaze as he walked forward. His voice deep but soft, a calm and ethereal handsome face and a stride full of confidence and conviction bore a resemblance to that of a royal blood. The sheer potency of his presence demanded respect, even she. A princess herself could not deny the self-conscious thoughts about being disrespectful in his presence into surface. What truly caught her attention were the 2 wristbands in abnormally heavy pressure in the room. The wristbands were similar to the bracelets worn by her and her sisters as well as the queen. Though they resembled the ones worn by the queen and her, except red in color and segmented. She would have to ask about that later on. Superman, being the kind-hearted man that he was, simply smiled at the redhead and tried to ignore the sudden appearance of an unknown force weighing down on his shoulders. He didn't need his superior Kryptonian intellect or his enhanced sight to know that this man was not normal by any sense of the word. Batman, on the other hand, was already trying to analyze the newcomer and find his weakness, but was unfortunately being met with failure. This man left nothing uncovered or exposed to be exploited, not mention he was too friendly. Judging from the name _ which was another surprise since all heroes and heroines kept their real names a secret _ he was obviously from either Japan or China, but his style of dress, regal facial features and fluent English presented a completely different picture. A pleasure to meet you, Naruto. I'm Diana of Paradise Island. As you may already know, this is Superman and Batman. Wonder Woman greeted with a polite smile and extended her hand. I have to say I'm honored by your presence. Naruto smiled and shook hands with the 3 members. Such an impressive grip, the black-haired heroine thought in surprise when she shook hands with the redhead. The strength of the grip reminded her of the times she had hand-wrestled Superman, which was saying something considering the man was, well, Superman. Now that the formalities are out of the way, can you tell us why you wanted an audience with the Justice League? Batman asked with his eyes narrowed behind the cowl. The red-headed king couldn't help but smile at the cautious man who was trying to intimidate him. Simple. I want to join the Justice League. The 3 members were surprised to say the least. Normally, when a new hero would spring up and get the attention of the League, he would be given the opportunity to join the League, or, if a sidekick was nominated and voted to be a part of the League. No one had ever volunteered to join the League before. Why? The ever-paranoid Batman asked suspiciously with a glare while Superman sighed. Can't he just give the guy a chance? I didn't realize I required a reason to save innocent lives. Naruto smiled softly, not the least bit intimidated by the Batman glare, quite the contrary in fact. The Dark Knight, however, was not convinced by his supposedly noble actions and friendly act at all. He had seen far too friendly people later revealed to be serial killers. Who was to say that this one wouldn't turn out like the rest of them? In their line of duty, nothing was certain. Why don't you tell us about your abilities? The Man of Steel asked, trying to change the subject. Super strength, speed, senses, flight, invulnerability and a few other abilities. Superman and Wonder Woman were surprised to hear that his abilities were almost similar to theirs, while Batman narrowed his eyes at his curt explanation of his abilities. What other abilities? Some secrets are better to remain a secret, the redhead said mysteriously, prompting Batman to frown. If you want to join the League, you need to come clean with your secrets. I'm entitled to my own secrets, Batman, just like all of you. Superman has his own secrets, as does Wonder Woman, and you do as well. They wouldn't be secrets if they were exposed, but rest assured, it will not put the League in jeopardy, Naruto explained with a delicate smile. Excuse us, Naruto. Batman, may I have a few words with you? Clark interjected with a smile. He had to agree with the redhead's logic about secrets being secrets. I mean, he wouldn't outright reveal his secret identity to anyone simply because they wanted him to come clean. In fact, very few people knew about his identity as the mild-mannered Clark Kent. Batman had found out through means he didn't want to know about. To be fair, he had also used his X-ray vision to figure out the Dark Knight's identity as well. Diana. Well, she had been the most surprising one in regards to figuring out who he was off duty. She had figured it out during an interview. He had counted his lucky stars on that day for being alone with her in her embassy office, since she had outright asked why, and he quote, "Cal, why are you dressed in a silly garb and asking me these questions when you could have asked them on the watchtower?" He knew she was blunt and all, but come on, she could have compromised his identity. Batman raised an eyebrow at the strange request but complied and walked out of the room with Clark, leaving a contemplating Wonder Woman behind. I'm not convinced by his act. I'll summon Jun to scan his mind. Batman said in his usual grumpy voice as they stood outside the room. When are you convinced anyway? Clark teased with a raised eyebrow. Jokes aside, I listened to his heartbeat and it stayed the same throughout the conversation. If he was lying, it would have surely increased, yet it didn't. That is still not enough. Can't you feel the weight of his presence even outside here? It's like a huge truck is placed on our shoulders and frankly, it's making me a little wary, the Dark Knight explained with a scowl. He had faced the likes of Joker, Felix Faust, Circe and Darkseid, all considerably powerful with great strength or skills, yet not even one of them had been able to make his heart thump faster in his chest cavity. Not even Darkseid had been able to make him sweat from sheer fear alone. Joker's most twisted and revolting jokes hadn't even made him flinch, let alone shiver. Yet this redhead was doing all those things by just being there. He hadn't even moved from his spot, yet he could feel his overwhelming presence even outside of the room. Wary than usual? Superman asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes. Then I guess calling Jean is the only option. Batman nodded and turned to the widescreen computer. Computer, contact Jean. Connecting. Message sent. The monitor displayed the image of the olive-green face of Martian Manhunter. Yes, Batman. Jean, we have a situation in the Hall of Justice that requires your unique abilities, the Dark Knight replied. Acknowledged. On my way. Inside the room, Naruto was seated on a comfortable sofa in the waiting room with a delicate smile on his ethereally regal face, sensing a set of eyes observing him closely, as if he was a puzzle she could not solve. You have something on your mind, Your Majesty? Naruto asked suddenly without even looking, causing Diana to give him a puzzled look. I don't know what you're talking about and please don't call me, Your Majesty, she stated innocently and tried hard not to lose herself in those oceanic blue orbs when he glanced at her with an arched eyebrow of amusement. Your posture indicates that you have something on your mind yet you seem reluctant to ask what your heart desires. Wonder Woman seemed to be rather shocked that he could read her like that. She indeed had a question and was dying to find the answer, but she was reluctant to ask in fear of offending a potential member of the League. A part of her was screaming at her that she knew this man, but she could not recall ever meeting someone like him before. The feelings were just at the tip of her mind yet her tongue could not find words to describe them. Quite perceptive of you, she praised curiously. I do have a question, a rather personal one in fact. Why are you wearing those bracelets? Am I not allowed to? The redhead asked with a lopsided smile. Realizing the humor in his tone, Diana shook her head in negative with a smile. No, just curious, mere coincidence I believe, Naruto responded and raised his bulging forearm to his eyes to look at the red segmented bracelets. They are quite helpful. That there, Wonder Woman agreed with a smile. The unease and self-conscious thoughts were slowly reducing the more she talked with him. Maybe at some point in time, she would have enough courage to ask him if she had met him before. I hope you don't mind the attitude of my teammate, he is quite cautious to say the least. Not at all. Would I be correct in assuming that this is the normal protocol for new membership? Not entirely. Usually, we recruit members, not the other way around. You're the first to actually volunteer by yourself, the black-haired heroine replied sheepishly and smiled softly when Naruto let out a small melodious chuckle. That must have been quite a surprise. It was. The door to the room slid open and Superman, Batman and the Green Martian Manhunter entered. Naruto, allow me to introduce you to the fourth senior member of the League, Martian Manhunter. Superman started and gestured to the Green Man standing quietly beside him. Ah yes, the ever-analytical and faithful extraterrestrial comrade of the League. I'm honored, Naruto praised genuinely. What he said was neither sarcasm nor empty words, but merely the truth. Martian Manhunter was what could be described as the perfect upholder of friendship and loyalty. I'm honored by your kind words, the Green Martian replied in his monotone voice. Martian Manhunter, our friend, here wants to join the League. You're here to read his mind to find if he is being truthful, Batman stated seriously. The quite green alien nodded slowly and stepped forward in front of the seated king. It's not my desire to invade your privacy. Unfortunately, it's the only way to clear your name and to satisfy Batman's suspicious nature, he explained apologetically. Do what you must, Naruto assured with a smile. Martian Manhunter's already red eyes shined a bright red as he gazed straight Naruto's blue eyes. Seeing as mere mortals couldn't see what truly laid inside his head unless they wanted to get their minds fried, Naruto, in the span of 1 millisecond, created an entirely different life story with precise details to properly convince the Martian and Batman. The green alien's eyes stopped glowing after a few moments and turned to Batman. "He speaks the truth." Batman scowled and narrowed his eyes at the calm redhead, still not convinced. The redhead's smile was not of someone who had just his mind scanned by the Martian. He would have to ask Jun about the things he saw in Naruto's mind. "Welcome to the League, Destiny," Superman stated with a smile. 2 months later, Watchtower, Observation Deck. The observation deck of the Watchtower was located at the topmost floor of the floating station, used to observe the world below. The large hall-like room was surrounded by a large transparent glass from 3 sides. Inside the glass, a sanctuary of sorts was created to hold many animals and plants to provide the members of the League a feeling of harmony and peace away from home. The dazzlingly blue glow of the planet below combined with the peace and tranquility provided by the birds and plants created a very heartwarming and serene environment. Naruto was standing in front of the glass with a peaceful smile on his face. A multitude of birds were sitting on his shoulders and hands while small animals like squirrels were lying around his feet as he gazed at the peacefully spinning globe below. Being an entity of nature itself, everything, whether animals, plants or birds, were connected with him. That connection was not just some ordinary connection, no. He could understand their every thought and move as if it was conveyed through words. "So this is where you have been hiding," a teasing voice said from behind him. Naruto turned around with a small smile and came face to face with the black-haired heroine known as Wonder Woman. "Is that a crime? Hiding your face from us is as good a crime as any. I'll try to be careful next time, Your Highness." She stepped forward and stood beside him with one hand on her hip as she gazed at the world below. It has been 2 months since Naruto had joined the League and things have been pretty much the same. The members had taken a liking to him as soon as they had seen him, especially the females. His friendly and comforting aura had proven too hard to resist by any of the members of the League. His constant serene smile and calm nature give confidence and new light to those around him. The past 2 months, never once had he ever looked down on any of the less powerful members, even though he possessed power beyond her and Superman's capability. Quite the opposite, in fact, he had offered friendly spars and training methods for them to improve their skills. The males saw him as a worthy companion and friend they could rely on should they face any hard times, while the females saw him as a big brother always there for them should they need advice, even those older than him, herself included. Everyone except Batman, of course, much to her chagrin. He was still of the opinion that Naruto was nothing but an actor trying to conceal his evil ways and waiting for a chance to take down the League. Speaking of the ever-paranoid Batman, he was having his hands full on Earth with giving the 3 sidekicks a tour of the Hall of Justice. The way animals and plants loved and adored him was utterly shocking and endearing. At first they had dismissed it as trick of their imagination to see a seemingly motionless plant suddenly wrap around him as if hugging him, but slowly and surely they had come to realize the deep love the animals and plants had for him. Now seeing him surrounded by birds and animals as well as plants was a common but welcoming sight. "Something wrong, Diana?" the redhead asked out of the blue. Her head twisted around so quickly he feared she might have broken her neck as her eyes widened in surprise. Naruto had this disturbing habit of reading and analyzing your every thought and move no matter how much you try to conceal it. "Why would you think something is wrong?" she asked innocently while Naruto smiled softly. Children trying to hide away their emotions from him. Amusing. "Well, for one, you're futilely trying to give the impression of contentment. Yet the smile and happiness is not quite reaching your eyes. Second is the slight paleness of your normally vibrant olive skin. Combining the 2 signs, I would say you are homesick," the redhead explained calmly without turning around and thus missed the complete look of shock and amazement of Diana's face. "He was able to figure all that out within a few minutes of my arrival." She had to admit being impressed beyond belief. The sheer analytical power of his piercing blue eyes was mind-numbing. She had been indeed homesick for some time now. Being away from home for so long does that to you. The reason why she had approached Naruto was to talk with him and maybe forget about her home for some time, but it seemed he knew before she even had the time to explain. "Hiding things from you is turning out to be impossible. Just how are you able to figure out such things anyway? She asked fondly. It's a skill you learn with the passage of time, Diana, Naruto stated mysteriously, causing her to give him a puzzled look. Nevertheless, I believe taking some time away from your duties and visiting your mother and sisters would do you some good. I know. I'm trying to take my leave when there is no crisis, but unfortunately, it's turning out to be far more difficult than I had imagined, she sighed. Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder in a comforting gesture and offered a small smile. I'm sure that opportunity will present itself soon. But can you do me a favor? Of course, when you do take your leave, can you at least introduce me to your mother? The black-haired heroine shot him a surprised look. You mean you want to accompany me to my home? Indeed, she didn't want to break his trust in her or give him false promise. While their crisis at the hands of Hercules had ended before he and his men could take the honor and dignity of her mother and sisters, they still resented and abhorred men except the one man who had saved them. She had not been told of his name nor his identity, only the stories and legends surrounding his name, the legends of how he had single-handedly destroyed Hercules and his army without moving a muscle, the stories of how he had bestowed them with immortality and had given them the bracelets to signify their independence and freedom from any man's authority and power. It was the exact same reason why she had asked about the bracelets wrapped around Naruto's hands. I hate to say this, but my mother and sisters are not exactly friendly towards men in general. I will never forgive myself if they hurt you in my presence and in my home, she explained apologetically. It was depressing to hear a favor from him of all people yet lack the power to see it through, seeing as he had not even asked for a glass of water from anyone in the league, let alone a favor. I'm sure it'll be quite an interesting experience to see a horde of females trying to kill me, the redhead stated jokingly as Diana gave a small chuckle. Naruto, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, they could seriously hurt. No need to worry, I can take care of myself, he assured firmly with a smile. Well, if you say so. Incoming transmission. Naruto and Wonder Woman looked up as a screen showcased an image of the magic user of the League. Zatara to Justice League. The sorcerer Wotan is using the Amulet of Aten to blot out the sun, requesting full League response. Duty calls. Naruto voiced out and gently released the birds from his shoulders and hands as he walked away, followed by the black-haired heroine. A few hours later, aren't you coming, Naruto? Batman says it will intimidate the sidekicks to see all Justice League members come to see their not-so-secret mission failure. Dinah aka Black Canary said encouragingly while she stood in front of the seated Naruto. They had just stopped Wotan from blotting out the sun. The other members were restricted by severe handicaps due to the nature of the mission. Not every member could breathe in space. Superman had once again proven his vulnerability to magic, but he had no such weakness. It seems Wotan had expected him to lose unconsciousness by directing almost 1/3 of the energy of the sun at him. However, he had soon learned that Destiny had no weakness to begin with. They had just returned from their mission and had found out that their systems have been hacked by Robin to see the files about Project Cadmus. The three sidekicks had taken it upon themselves to investigate the facility and had apparently destroyed the whole building. Dinah was here to convince him to come with them to the Earth and confront the sidekicks. If the thoughts swarming around Batman's head were any indication, he had a feeling he would be seeing them a lot. Apparently Batman still thought of him as a secret agent of the enemy, no surprise there. I'm certain it would be a waste of time, Naruto replied with a smile. Come on. I think it would be fun, quite fun to see the look on their faces, Dinah said encouragingly. No promises, but I shall try to be there. Mount Justice. This cave was the original secret sanctuary of the Justice League. We're calling it into service again. Since you four are determined to stay together and fight the good fight, you will do it in real terms, Batman announced to the four sidekicks. Kid Flash, Aqualad, Robin and the newly released clone of Superman, Superboy, Red Tornado volunteered to live here and be your supervisor. Black Canary will be in charge of your training and I will deploy you on missions. Real missions? Robin asked in surprise. Yes, but covert, the Dark Knight affirmed. The League will still handle the obvious stuff. There is a reason we have these big signs on our chest, you know. Flash grinned and poked the lightning symbol on his chest. Cadmus proves that the bad guys are getting smart. Batman needs a team that can act covertly, Aquaman stated. The 5 of you'll be that team. Cool. Wait, 5? Batman gave a slight inclination of his head to their backs. The four sidekicks turned around and saw Martian Manhunter with a redhead Martian girl their age walking beside him. This is the Martian Manhunter's niece, Miss Martian. The girl was obviously a Martian, given that her skin was green. She had red hair and was wearing a white shirt with red lines, a blue skirt and blue cap. Wally couldn't contain the slight grin creeping up his face as he leaned towards Robin. "I'm liking this hero gag every minute," he whispered and moved towards the green-skinned girl with a wide flamboyant grin. "Hi, I am Kid Flash, that's Robin, Superboy and Aqualad. It's perfectly cool if you forget their names." "I'm honored to be included," Miss Martian voiced with a polite smile. The three sidekicks minus Superboy moved towards the green Martian and shook her hand. Superboy was reminded once again the reality of his existence. Created to be a clone to replace or kill Superman was not a way of life he cherished. Seeing the distant expression on Superboy's face, Robin waved his hand in "come here" gesture. "Hey, Superboy, come and meet Miss M." Happy to be included in the welcoming ceremony, Superboy walked forward and stood beside the four teens. The white shirt of Miss Martian changed color and became a black shirt with red lines, similar to his, except the two crossing lines on the torso. "I like your shirt," she said with a shy smile. Superboy returned the smile, albeit a small one. Wally and Robin nudged the clone in a friendly way and draped their arms around him. "All right, now that the pleasantries are out of the way, I would like to introduce to you another supervisor who will accompany you on some of your missions," Batman announced firmly. "Recognized Destiny," the computer announced loudly, and a tall individual walked towards the cave with grace and elegance, with such confident and self-assured way that it had all the sidekicks entranced. A heavy pressure accompanied his every step towards their location. However, there was no feeling of malice or evil intent in the pressure. Quite the opposite, in fact. The aura surrounding the tall redhead was that of comfort and support. "Who is that?" Kid Flash whispered to Robin, his eyes wide like saucers in awe. For the first time in his life, he was speechless, and that was saying something considering his mouth ran even faster than his feet. "You don't know? That's the new strongest member of the League. He is practically a living legend," he replied with equal surprise. A man becoming legendary in 2 short months accompanying them on missions would be like a dream come true. Superboy didn't care about the rest. Only the part about this guy being stronger than Superman had gotten his attention. Could a guy exist that was stronger than Superman? He had never thought of the possibility of someone stronger than Superman existing. Cadmus had programmed his mind to think so. "Greetings, young ones. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, but you may call me Destiny," Naruto greeted with a soft smile on his regal face. "That's why you didn't want to come. You should have said so," Dinah said with a frown, hurt that he had known this would happen and hadn't told her about it. Then again, she should have known that he would know everything happening around the League. She had no idea how, but somehow he seemed to know everything about them. "My apologies, I had no desire to ruin your entertainment," Naruto reasoned with his typical delicate smile. "Hello. My name is Robin. It's an honor to meet you," Robin said with an uneasy smile, nervous from being so close to the legendary figure of the Justice League. "It's not every day you meet someone who is stronger than Superman." "At ease, child. No need to be so formal," the red-headed king stated with an easygoing smile that sure enough relaxed Robin. Hello. My name is Kid Flash. Nice to meet you." Standing to the side, Flash's eyebrow rose in surprise. He had never ever seen KF stutter, but then again, this was Naruto they were talking about. Even some of the more hardened members had stuttered when they had first met him, including Flash himself. "Ah yes, I've heard about you, Kid Flash. I have to say I find your behavior and entertaining nature to be very amusing," Naruto voiced with clear amusement while Kid Flash chuckled nervously, not exactly expecting to be praised for his joking nature. "Hello. I'm Megan Mars. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Destiny," Miss M stated with a polite tone. "The honor is all mine, Miss Martian. My name is Aqualad. It's an honor to be in the presence of such a legendary member of the League," Aqualad spoke in a polite tone. His king had mentioned the enrollment of a new and powerful member into the Justice League. The sheer amount of strength he possessed was astounding. He had no choice but to give him the respect he deserved. Superboy was still staring at the tall redhead with something akin to concealed admiration and awe. The pressure he emitted, the confidence with which he walked and the way he talked was awe-inspiring. He may have wanted to be accepted by Superman, but now he had found someone stronger and better than Superman. My name is Superboy. It's a pleasure to meet you, Superboy. Now that the pleasantries are over, I would like to instate a basic but incredibly essential rule of this team. Always trust your teammates. Secondly, always call on me should you need help regardless of anyone's feeling on the matter. I will hear your call whether I'm here, off-world or even in another dimension. Am I understood? Yes, sir. Batman was looking at the interaction between the sidekicks and Naruto with narrowed eyes. The nervous reaction from Robin had surprised him, stunned even. He had trained the boy to not be intimidated by anything or anyone. For him to show such nervousness and unease was astonishing to say the least. Even he could not intimidate the boy so easily, but Naruto had done it with just his presence alone. It further proved his theories about Naruto being a secret agent of the enemy. Aquaman, Flash, Red Tornado and Black Canary were looking at the scene with small smiles. Well, the rest were smiling while Tornado was gazing confusingly. His superior programming had nothing on this strange and powerful force Naruto possessed to accomplish such feats such as intimidating a whole group by merely his presence alone. A week later, Mount Justice. It had been 1 week since their Cadmus dilemma and the team was itching for some action. Aqualad, Miss Martian and Superboy were waiting for Destiny and Red Tornado to arrive so they could ask for a mission. Red Tornado was easy to understand and predict. Given his robotic nature, he should have been the harder one to understand, yet they were able to do it. But Naruto, on the other hand, was incomprehensible. They had spent 1 week with him yet they hadn't been able to tell what he was feeling or thinking. The man was friendly and welcoming to everyone, one of them, but the constant pressure lurking around him made it harder for the team to approach. When that particular issue had been brought to his attention, he had resolved it with a, "You'll get used it in time," just like the Justice League, and a small smile, without explaining the nature of the overbearing pressure around him. The pressure hadn't lessened throughout the week, though it had become manageable just like Naruto had said it would. Recognized, Robin, Kid Flash, the two sidekicks materialized in front of the Zeta beam tubes and ran to the center of the cave, where the rest of the team was standing. "Are they here yet?" Kid Flash asked with excitement. "What did they say?" Robin asked with equal giddiness. Aqualad pointed to a large screen showing 2 points approaching their general location quickly. "They are arriving now. Let's go outside and meet them." The team nodded and ran to the exit of the cave. As soon as they stepped out, a sudden blur and a controlled tornado alerted them to the presence of the Leaguers, Naruto in his usual regal and dignified glory and Tornado in his robotic glory. Destiny floated to the ground without making a sound, followed by Red Tornado in his usual tornado style of transportation as Wally waved his hand in greetings. Tornado and Destiny. "Greetings. Is there a reason you intercepted us outside the cave?" Red Tornado asked confusingly. "I believe they want an assignment," Naruto stated knowingly. The looks of surprise and shock were both amusing and expected. Honestly, they should have learned by now that he could read them like an open book. "Ah. You're correct. We were hoping to see if you have an assignment for us," Aqualad explained politely, getting over his shock of being discovered so quickly. There was just no hiding anything from Naruto whatsoever. "Mission assignments are the Batman's responsibility," Red T replied in monotone. "But it's been over a week and nothing has." Robin started but stopped when Tornado raised his hand. "You'll be tested soon enough. For now, simply enjoy each other's company." "This team is not a social club," Aqualad stated with a frown. Seeing as the situation was getting out of hand, Naruto interjected with a soft smile, "Miss Martian, why don't you entertain the team by showing them your bioship and maybe take it for a test drive? There are no assignments as of right now, but I'll be sure to inform you should one come up." That seemed to satisfy the team if the wide grins were any indication. Wally and Robin gave each other a high five and entered the cave with Megan telling them about her bioship and the layouts of the cave. Tornado gave Destiny a look akin to confusion, still not getting the influence and authority he had over the team as well as the Justice League. "May I ask how you're able to convince them with the same aspects they had disagreed with before when I mentioned them?" He advised them to get acquainted with each other, but they sharply opposed. Yet when Naruto mentioned to take the bioship for a test drive which would accomplish the same objective he had said, they agreed. The difference between what he had said and what Naruto had stated eluded him. It's an unpretentious style of verbalizing something that has identical implication yet different outcome. The Redhead King clarified and floated in the direction of the cave, followed by a contemplating tornado. An hour later Naruto was floating in a crossed-legged meditative position and listening to national news on a wide screen in the cave while Tornado was standing like a statue behind him. A particular report about abnormal tornadoes raging around in England caught his interest and knew the team would be happy to investigate. Destiny to Miss Martian. An emergency alert has been triggered at the Happy Harbor power plant. I suggest you investigate, albeit covertly. Acknowledged. We're just on course. Megan replied swiftly and tried to conceal her happiness. This is so cool. Our first official mission. Wally exclaimed and pumped his fist to the air. Indeed, it is, Calder replied with a smile while Robin grinned in anticipation. Let's do this. An hour later, Miss Martian to Destiny. Naruto looked up from reading a book to a wide screen showing the image of a dejected and downtrodden Miss Martian. What is it, child? Sorry to say this, but No. I messed up and thought this Twister character was Red Tornado in disguise and thus hurt the team. They are pursuing him, right, but I know we'll need your help, she explained dejectedly. No need to be sit down, dear. Inaccuracies are to be made. It's the greatest thing about being young. When you make mistake, you have time to redeem yourself. Notify the team. I'll be there before you can say Mount Justice, the deep and regal voice of Destiny affirmed. Yes, sir. Naruto arrived at Happy Harbor a few seconds later to find the team fighting a red robot with the same ability as that of Tornado. That would be quite enough. The calm and regal tone of voice got the attention of the team and the red robot as they stopped their battle. Naruto descended to the ground in front of the robot and gave the team a small smile. You have done enough, team, rest now. But we didn't win. Aren't you disappointed? Robin asked in confusion, getting over the shock of Destiny's sudden appearance. Battles are not always about winning, nor are they fought to win but rather to protect something precious, Destiny explained calmly with a soft smile and dodged a sudden tornado attack from a fuming Mr. Twister. My sincere apologies for ignoring you. My name is Destiny. I don't care who you are, you're in my way, step aside or get terminated. The robot stated in an angry voice. Naruto didn't seem the least bit bothered by the insult or the threat as he held his ground with his hands behind his back and eyed the red robot with calculating calm eyes. His lips stretched into a delicate smile while the team looked on with rapt attention. Seeing as his threat didn't work, the robot violently plunged his hands behind him and sent an enormous tornado at the unmoving redhead who didn't even flinch or move from his position as the tornado swallowed him up. Before the robot had time to even gloat about his victory, a blur shot out of the tornado and struck him in the torso. Creak. The machine looked down at his torso with something akin to shock to see a large fist disappearing into his chest cavity and out of his back. Naruto retracted his fist and took a hold of the robot before sending it flying to the deep sea with another devastating punch. The flight path of the robot was filled with robotic limbs and parts from the powerful punch all the way to the wide sea. The team had their eyes wide in astonishment. They hadn't even blinked before it was all over. He defeated an enemy they had spent hours to defeat, in a few seconds. So this is the legendary speed and strength of Destiny. It's truly amazing, Calder said in an amazed tone. Now I understand why Batman is so cautious of him, Dick Grayson voiced in an amazed tone. Wally was too stunned to even talk. The speed with which Destiny took out Mr. Twister was something he could only dream of. Destiny's speed made his look like a snail trying to run. It's no wonder all the Leaguers claim him to be faster than even Flash himself. That should take care of it. I hope none of you received any substantial impairment. English, please? Wally asked dumbly while Naruto smiled. You're not hurt, are ya? Naruto asked in a silly tone of voice. The look on the team's face was amusing to say the least. If you can talk that way, then why were you torturing us with those complicated words every time you spoke? KF whined childishly while Robin and Aqualad nodded in agreement. Naruto simply gave them a soft, amusing smile. Miss Martian should be here in about 5 seconds. Wait for her arrival and return to cave. Why don't you just carry us with you? Wally blurted out before he slapped his mouth. Carrying you would be no problem at all. However, your bodies won't be able to withstand my speed. That's okay. We'll wait for Miss M, right KF? Robin interjected with pointed look at Kid Flash, who nodded vigorously. Naruto gave them one last smile and shot upwards with incredible speed, a loud boom signifying his breaking of the sound barrier.
Crystal Palace, Throne Room. Naruto appeared out of a large distortion inside the throne room in all his regal glory as his crimson uniform turned to his royal clothes. It had been 2 months and almost 2 weeks since he had joined the League. In all that time he hadn't returned to his beloved kingdom.
He had to alter his appearance, as his original appearance would have left everyone deprived of the ability to speak or breathe even, as well as his height and voice. His abnormally tall height would have certainly attracted a lot of unwanted attention. His voice, on the other hand, was a different story altogether. Its natural deepness and authority would have been a major problem in gaining the trust of others, since they would have been too busy respecting him out of fear for their lives.
The throne room was as glorious as always, with his magnificent throne situated upon the pedestal. He floated to his throne with his bloody red fur cap fluttering with a soft breeze and calmly sat down with his head on his fist. The redhead king smiled softly when the door to the throne room was knocked a few times.
Enter. The door opened and walked in the ever stoical and obedient Okayan. As soon as he reached the start of the stairs to the pedestal, he kneeled down. Welcome back, sire. I hope the journey back to the land was pleasant, as well as your quest to join the Justice League. The inhabitants have missed your presence, he stated submissively. It proved reasonably entertaining. I hope things have been peaceful in the course of my absence, Naruto spoke calmly. Of course, though the masters and mistresses have been quite vocal about you not visiting them upon awakening from your slumber, sire. Naruto let out a soft chuckle at the mention of his sons and daughters. All these years and they still behaved like children, pouting over not receiving the full attention of her parents. Just like all other children, human or otherwise, they always waited for him to visit them instead of coming themselves, believing it to be his responsibility to see his sons and daughters. He would have to visit them soon, else they would be sulking for another decade or so. Is that so? They never learn, but then again, children will always be children, he said amusingly, while Okayan showed a rare show of amusement, that being a small smile. Should I inform them of your visit? Okayan asked unsurely. The redhead gave him a calm smile and raised his hand. That won't be necessary. I want my visit to be a surprise. As you wish, sire. May I recommend the visit to be right now, since the servants are starting to fear their temper problems. The oldest master, Master Kurama, has blown up the entire west wing of the palace during one of his usual episodes. The damage has been repaired, of course, but the issue of more fear and fright is still unsettled. Naruto couldn't help the loud melodious laugh that escaped his mouth when he heard the dry tone Okayan used to describe his oldest son, since he was in charge of the palace, meaning all the damage was to be repaired by him. Naruto had given him the power to carry out all the duties, but it didn't make it any less bothersome. Kurama was always the most volatile and emotional of all his children, since he had spent more time with him in the past, but he was also the most protective and possessive. He was the strongest among his siblings and thus had the biggest ego. I believe I should probably take your suggestion into consideration. I may not show it, but I have missed them. With that said, Naruto floated down the pedestal and out of the room, with his right hand following him obediently to the chambers of his children. Meeting and listening to their constant rants about not being a proper father was sure to be amusing. Crystal Palace, West Wing. The calm and kind king glided in the direction of the west wing of his palace with a calm and soft smile on his face, his subordinate walking beside him obediently. The entire west wing of the palace was devoted to the sons and daughters of the ancient king. Each chamber designated for a master or mistress was an isolated and independent dimension, originated for the solitary principle of meeting every single requirement of its master, designed according to the preferences and choices of living of the resident. Though, there was another room constructed where the monarch and his children would convene their meetings. Since today was the day of the monthly meeting between the siblings, it would be convenient for Naruto to simply surprise all of them by suddenly entering the meeting chamber instead of visiting them one by one, not to mention it would prove quite amusing to see their expressions. The massive door of the meeting chamber came into view, guarded by two colossal sentinels. Naruto turned towards his loyal subordinate with a kind smile. "Okain, I believe you should stay outside, considering Kurama's less than pleasant temperament." Okain gave a slight bow. "Sire, wouldn't it be better for me to follow in case something gets in the way of Master Kurama's rather volatile temper? I have no desire to waste your time by fixing something which should be my job to fix. Do not concern yourself with such trivial matters, Okain. I would like to be alone in order to properly greet my children," he dismissed with a soft smile when they approached the gate. The massive guards bowed to the kind ruler and opened the great doors to the meeting chamber. "As you wish, sire, I'll wait for you outside," he relented with a small bow while the king entered with a calm and comforting aura. Meeting chamber. The inside of the massive room, like the rest of the palace, was located in a separate dimension to properly accommodate the massive residence. The dimensionally isolated room was dimly lit with small torches of fire littered around for miles. In the middle of the strangely isolated room was a raised platform where a large and crimson crystal throne was made specifically for the king to sit upon during his visits. The raised platform was lit up by two torches resting on either side of the throne, giving it an eerily commanding and mysterious look. Starting from the right side of the throne were 9 massive cushion-like structures for the 9 siblings, curving around till it reached the left side of the throne. Each structure was different than the other in a unique way.
The first structure from the right side was a bed of dazzling golden sand. Sitting upon the bed, or rather cushion of sand, was a massive light golden raccoon-dog hybrid animal with strange black marks running down its body and a large spiky tail. This was the last child and youngest son of the king, Shukaku, master of the desert.
The second structure was entirely covered in bluish flames, seething and swirling from side to side due to an invisible wind. Sitting upon this strange structure was a two-tailed flaming blue cat with black marks littered across its body and different colored eyes. This was the 8th child and youngest daughter of the king, Matabi, mistress of the Hellfire. The third structure was occupied by a large 3 spiky-tailed turtle-like creature with one eye closed and one opened, calmly floating in a pool of crystal blue water. This was the 7th child and 5th son of the Moon King, Isobu, master of the oceans. The fourth structure was a pool of molten lava occupied by a large 4-tailed orange-red monkey. This was the 6th child and 4th son of the mighty king, Son Goku, king of the sage monkeys. The 5th construct was a pool of boiling water with copious amount of steam rising from its heated confines. The massive figure relaxing in the boiling pool was a strange 5-tailed horse-dolphin hybrid animal with 2 long and 2 short horns atop its head. This was the 5th child and 2nd daughter of the king, Kakuo, mistress of the boiling temple. The 6th structure, like the rest, was a pool of sizzling acid. The one occupying this dangerous structure was an enormous light bluish bipedal slug with stubby arms, feet and 6 long tails. It had 2 prominent optical tentacles and hole-like openings as a mouth with its entire body covered in the sizzling and hissing acid. This was the 4th child and 1st daughter of the kind king, Seiken, mistress of the sizzling acid. The 7th structure was more like a massive nest or cocoon sticking to a giant tree in the room. Inside the nest was a massive blue armored rhinoceros beetle with 7 tails resembling green insect wings and a large 7th tail emerging from its bottom. This was the 3rd child and 3rd son of the king, Chome, master of insects. The 8th structure was a rocky small landscape with clear clouds swirling above, giving off a serene and peaceful look. Laying in the middle of this peaceful landscape was a giant 8-tailed ox with octopus tails and 2 long horns pointed at the front. This was the 2nd child and 2nd son of the Calm King, Gyuki, master of the oxes. The final structure was a peaceful forest landscape with a massive 9-tailed fox laying in the middle, resting its head on its paws. This was the strongest of the king's children, the 1st child and 1st son, Kurama, master of foxes. "So why are we here again?" the ever-prideful and impatient Son Goku asked, taping his hands in the lava pool like an impatient teenager. "I would also like the answer to that same question," Isobu asked calmly. "Usually, our meetings are only held when father is present. Without him here, I see no point in coming here only to see you bickering with each other." The 4-tailed ape king snorted mockingly. "Thank you for stating the obvious." Isobu apparently didn't take kindly to that retort and glared at the sage monkey. You want to say that again, you damn monkey. What did you just call me, you one-eyed turtle? Kurama raised his head from his paws and glared at his two siblings while they bickered with each other. Normally, this wouldn't happen, since father would maintain a sort of connection and peace between the uniquely different siblings. In fact, the kind king was the only cord keeping them together. Otherwise they would have split up a long time ago due to their differences, like they had first split up when their father had entered the cycle of incarnation. His glare and little bit of killing intent seemed to have grabbed their attention. Shut the hell up you two, or I will kill you both. Son Goku snorted in response. Even though he knew he would never be able to fight his older brother for long due to the sheer gap in their power level, however, his pride would never allow him to submit to anyone, besides father of course. You still act all high and mighty even now, Fox. Clearly our father's absence has boosted your already titanic ego. I agree, you have no right to tell us what to do and what not. Stay out of this, the three-tailed turtle agreed with a scowl. Matabi knew the situation would get out of hand soon if the almost giddy expression on Shukaku's face was any indication, since he seemed to have a disturbing habit of rubbing his hands when there were any signs of potential fight. Let's all take a few deep breaths and go through this meeting like civilized people. Demons. Fight. Fight. Shukaku shouted giddily, his eyes wide with maniacal ecstasy as he rubbed his stubby hands together like a mad scientist ready to dissect a poor sap. The three-tailed and four-tailed siblings tensed when the aura around their older brother changed and turned to one of malice, knowing they were screwed if he unleashed even a slight fraction of his immense power. Kurama slowly rose to his full gigantic height, his 9 tails flickering behind him menacingly, his red eyes boiling with anger. You dare address me with such disrespect? The two-tailed hellcat stood up abruptly from her flaming cushion and tried desperately to calm her older brother. Brother, calm down. What would father say if he saw you trying to harm your siblings? She backed away when he turned his malicious glare towards her. He isn't here. As soon as the words left his mouth, the massive doors to the meeting chamber opened and a familiar pressure rained down upon the room, followed by the tall silhouette of a man in the darkness of the isolated chamber. Now, Kurama, no need to be so hard on your siblings. The siblings except Kurama let large smiles of happiness appear on their visages despite trying to appear annoyed. Shukaku was the most vocal of all the siblings, jumping in his sandy cushion like a child on Sugar Rush and screaming, "Father," over and over again. Kurama on the other hand was seething in anger. As soon as the regal figure of the king entered and floated to the middle of the room, he raised his massive paw and attacked. His giant paw struck the ground with the grace of a speeding meteor, blasting away the ground in winds picking up pace. The other siblings scowled in anger at their older brother's disrespect for trying to attack their father. Kurama, you've gone long enough, stop this foolishness. Gyuki growled in anger. The 9-tailed fox ignored him and glared at the smoke-covered ground. Is that any way to greet your dear old father? A regal voice full of open amusement said among the rubble, the dust and smoke clearing away to reveal the regal figure of the king stopping the massive paw of his elder son with a finger. The king was dressed in a long white coat reaching past his knees, matching black hakama, a white kimono-style shirt with a few buttons undone, a blue sash wrapped around his waist and black socks hidden by white straw sandals.
Long tresses of crimson hair reaching to the middle of his knees waved and swayed like the calm waves of a sea in a soft wind. 2 delicately thin bangs fell down right in front of his blue shining diamond-like eyes. A soft and delicate smile danced on his lips, giving his otherworldly regal and handsome face a new light and aura. The amount of amusement in his narrow blue eyes angered Kurama even more. You mean the father who saw fit to go to the human world first for 2 months instead of visiting his own children? Stop acting like a child, Kurama. The 9-tailed fox tried hard to sneer at the kind smile on his father's face, only to avert his eyes after a few seconds of staring into those endless pools of ocean blue. No matter how much anger he had pent up over his father's 2-century-long slumber, he simply couldn't hold on to it for long when in his presence. Dear children, it's quite a pleasure to see you all again, despite your less than pleasant welcome, the king said with a kind and regal tone, giving a pointed look to Kurama when he mentioned, "Welcome," and floated towards his pedestal, giving an affectionate rub to Shukaku's eagerly outstretched head and sat calmly on his throne. It's good to see you again, father. I may not approve of Kurama's violent welcoming gesture, still it was quite painful to hear that you had departed for the human world instead of meeting with us first. Matabi started with a large but annoyed smile.
Naruto smiled at his youngest daughter with a kind look on his face. No need to blame this old man for his mistakes, though you are not mere children to feel such irrelevant emotions in regards to my absence. I have given you my expressed permission to visit me in my throne room. Shukaku let out a loud roar of annoyance and accusingly pointed to his siblings one by one with his chubby sandy fingers. I suggested that, but these stuck-up idiots were against the idea. Though I wanted to visit, I couldn't because of that pain in the ass Okayan guy that follows you around all the time. He is creepy. Kurama let out a low growl when Shukaku included him in the list of stuck-up idiots but kept silent, knowing that if he raised a hand against him now, his father would stop him regardless of his reasons. Naruto gave his youngest child an amused look. Shukaku, be more respectful towards my right hand. It's his job to look out for your safety and needs. Kurama snorted, please, as if we need someone's help in taking care of ourselves. Hey you dumb fox. Stop interrupting father with your petty arrogant claims. Shukaku shouted from his place to the king's right and pointed to the nine-tailed fox on the king's right. The two glared at each other like children while Naruto looked on with clear amusement in his blue eyes, a small smile on his face. The rest of his children were calm for the most part since they hated bickering, though even they had their breaking point. Matabi, Seiken and Kakuo were the ever-peaceful daughters while Chome and Isobu were his two calm sons. The rest were as hot-headed as they came. Shukaku and Kurama would fight over the slightest of things, triggering an argument between Son Goku and Kurama over the title of the strongest demon between them. Gyuki would join in to prove his superiority, leaving Matabi to try and bring some semblance of peace between them. Hearing a loud cough among them, Naruto turned his attention away from his two bickering sons and looked towards his daughter sitting in the pool of boiling water. Yes? Something the matter, child? She cleared her throat and directed a discreet glare at her two bickering brothers. Pardon their rather discourteous behavior, father, I wanted to ask what was so important that you left so suddenly towards the human world. Your suppressed annoyance over the fact that I went there first aside. I was interested in joining a group of heroes to see what the world was like, Naruto explained with a kind smile. The dolphin horse hybrid lowered her head in embarrassment at being found out, though she couldn't be blamed. What would someone else feel if their father left somewhere first after 2 centuries, instead of coming to see them? The term, human, seemed to have gained the attention of Kurama as he turned around with a sneer, not really a fan of humans in general. The king couldn't really blame his son for his violent reaction, considering his previous history with humans. Wait, you mean those weirdos who wear their underwear on the outside? Shukaku asked innocently. No matter how big or powerful they were, each of them weren't afraid to show their childish sides in front of him, even Kurama despite him trying to hide it with his impassive attitude. Indeed, Naruto replied with an amused chuckle. Shukaku always had a habit of turning everything into something humorous. Please don't tell me that you are going to wear it the same as they do? Naruto let out a loud musical laugh at the whiny tone of voice. Nonsense, child. I never mentioned anything about adapting their sense of fashion as well. Shukaku, you insolent little shit, you just accused father of that horrible fashion style. Son Goku bellowed in his usual loud and boisterous voice. Who told you to butt in, you oversized monkey? Why you? The king looked on with amusement and something akin to fondness in his crystal-clear sapphire blue eyes, listening to his children bicker with each other like normal teenagers. He wasn't much for emotions considering his origin, though he supposed he could chalk up these human emotions to his human incarnation, Naruto Uzumaki. He was a tree by nature, granted a tree of unlimited power, but a tree nonetheless. Kindness had always been his default emotion, the rest were all thanks to his incarnation. His original name was ironically Naruto as well, but after he had been reborn as Naruto Uzumaki, he had taken the Uzumaki last name as a show of respect to the one human who truly took a place in his heart, Kushina Uzumaki, the mother of his reincarnation. It had been a fascinating experience to see what the humans meant by saying the love of a mother and father transcends every wall and limit. He hadn't been expecting to feel those irrelevant emotions upon his incarnation, but nevertheless they were welcomed. Throne Room Naruto was sitting on his throne upon the raised pedestal and looking over his vast kingdom, his head resting on his clenched fist. The meeting had gone pretty well considering the sour moods of his children over his abrupt departure from the kingdom to the human world. The rest had warmed up eventually, not able to keep on to their annoyance for long in his presence, though Kurama had once again proven his legendary stubbornness. He had been sulking and pouting throughout the entire meeting, but had eventually been pleased upon his promise to not leave before meeting them first. Okayan, as soon as the words left his mouth, Okayan appeared in front of the raised pedestal and bowed. "Yes, sire? I want you to head over to the island of Santa Prisca," Naruto stated evenly without turning his throne around to face his kneeling right-hand man. "Objectives and time limit?" Okayan asked curiously, wondering what his master wanted in an island. "Simply observe and report back immediately. Your wish is my command. I shall leave immediately." Naruto felt Okayan's presence disappear from his isolated dimension inside the celestial body and move towards the island. He had no particular reason for sending Okayan to that island, except that he wanted to make the upcoming mission for the sidekicks to be easy. The thoughts swirling around in Batman's head were only focused on the island since he had apparently found some reasons to be suspicious. The king had to give the human credit for being so observant. No wonder he was called the greatest detective ever. Such keen mind and intellect would push him far, if he didn't allow himself to be swallowed by the darkness of his past. He had Okayan gather everything about the human and had to admit, he was a fascinating one. A man forced into the dark life of vigilante by the early and unfortunate death of his parents in front of his young eyes, transforming him into a being of darkness, striving forward with the purpose of bringing his parents' murderer to justice. In all honesty, each member of the League had some traits and background that made them unique than the rest. Superman, for all his strength and might, possessed the kindness and patience of a monk. A man sent from a distant planet to be raised by two humble farmers and made into the man he was now. The humble, mild-mannered Clark Kent one moment, and the powerful and stoic Superman the next. Diana of Paradise Island, the beautiful daughter to the fabled queen of the aforementioned island and gifted by some unknown power, the perfect upholder of peace and honesty. Billy Batson aka Captain Marvel, a humble orphaned boy, gifted with mystic powers by a wizard named Shazam. A young boy 1 second. And with the utterance of a single word, able to change into a powerful adult. To think an orphaned boy would possess so much strength. Aquaman, the king of Atlantis living in the surface world to preserve peace and represent his people. Okayan appeared in the throne room after a few minutes and saw his king deep in thought. Well? The island is being occupied by the Cobra cult, formerly controlled by Bane, a cult dedicated to worshipping and serving a mere human, named Cobra, who claimed himself to be a deity. Naruto smiled at the small show of annoyance when Okayan mentioned deity. The purpose of the hostile takeover, so to speak, is to create a combination of Venom and Project Blockbuster from the now half-destroyed Cadmus. Naruto revolved the throne around and calmly walked down the pedestal with his long red hair and cap trailing behind him over the crimson carpet. Excellent. On a side note, I want you to keep an eye on Cadmus as well as the Genomorphs. Sire, I don't understand, Okayan said confusingly, not sure why his master would want him to keep an eye on something that was destroyed. You'll understand soon. Oh, and do try not to obstruct my children's path to enter the throne room, especially Shukaku. As soon as he reached the end of the stairs, a black portal appeared in front of him. Okayan detected the underlying hint of amusement in the king's voice and couldn't help but smile himself. I'll try my best, Your Majesty. With one last smile of approval, the king walked inside the portal and disappeared without a trace. Mount Justice, Santa Prisca. This island nation is the primary source of illegal and dangerous strength-enhancing steroid. Infrared heat signature indicates that the factory is going on in full capacity, though the shipment of Venom had been inexplicably cut off. Batman explained to the team of 5 young sidekicks, this is where the team comes. It will be your job to find out if the factory is still functioning or not. This is a covert recon mission. Observe and report back without engaging. If the Justice League needs to intervene, then we will. The team nodded in consent, though Dick Grayson looked like he wanted to ask something. Who'll be leading the team? Batman and Red Tornado exchanged looks of silent agreement and turned towards the team. Work that up between yourselves. Recognized destiny. Batman grunted when the usual suffocating pressure of the aforementioned man entered the cave, announcing his presence. He couldn't for the life of him figure just how that damn pressure was there. He had followed Destiny several times only to lose sight of him, had put several trackers on him to track him on his private satellite only for the screen to show no signal. It had been hell, trying to find out who and what he was during his regular days when he was not on duty. All that endless investigation and searching had resulted in nothing. Naruto walked up to the screen in his usual regal stride, full of confidence and power, an aura of calmness and comfort oozing off of him in waves as he smiled that usual calm and friendly smile. Greetings, team. Good morning, the team replied with small smiles on their faces, except for Batman who didn't want to smile and Tornado who didn't know how to smile. Naruto snapped his fingers and turned towards the screen, an image of Cobra and his cult working on several projects, trying to perfectly blend Venom with Project Blockbuster in order to create the new and more enhanced version of Venom. Cobra Venom appeared on the screen. I already have the info regarding the island. Batman narrowed his eyes in suspicion. How did you come by this information as well as the visual proof? Naruto gave him a small smile. Though your suspicion is well placed, there is no reason to deny the validity of the info I have gathered. Forgive me if I don't exactly trust your information considering that the source is unknown, Batman retorted sarcastically. Though he did lost the sarcastic tone when the pressure increased a little, the team will proceed anyway. The team passed the unfathomable man an uncharacteristic look, expecting him to show some sort of dissatisfaction for being disrespected, but were stunned to find him smiling calmly like it wasn't bothering him at all. Naruto didn't seem the least bit bothered by the lack of trust. Rather, he seemed more amused than annoyed. He wondered how long it would take Batman to realize that he was not one of the bad guys. Then again, he didn't really care about his opinion. He would follow the team nonetheless, simply to ensure their safety. Outside the cave, nighttime. Naruto emerged from the cave and watched the team fly away in Miss Martian's bioship with a calm look. He snapped his fingers and a black-winged steed appeared before him as he calmly mounted on it. The steed bowed in recognition and followed after the bioship by flapping its mighty wings, flying undetected in the darkness of the night. The calm waves of the sea brought back so many buried memories, memories he had kept simply to remind himself that even he had once experienced what it was like to be a human. Granted, he still had his power and immortality, but still it had been a fascinating encounter. If he had to choose between the different variations of human emotions, he would choose the love of a mother and a father. During his existence as a tree, he had watched and observed many fine examples of splendid friendship and parenthood, yet had only observed, never able to fully grasp the concept of love. He had observed the love a mother would shower on her child with a strange sense of fascination. Why would one human sacrifice himself to protect others? Why would a mother discard her comfort and make sure her child was fed and rested? All those jumbled emotions had only made sense when he had actually reincarnated as Naruto Uzumaki. His heart had bled and shouted towards his reincarnation's parent to dodge the blow of his own son, Kurama. His heart had only then understood the true meaning of love. He had been fascinated, stunned even to witness them jump in front of him to protect him from Kurama's anger-induced state. The parting words before their unfortunate death had been engraved into the deepest recesses of his heart for all eternity. Minato Namikaze, a man of honor, courage and determination. Kushina Uzumaki, a woman of love, sacrifice and courage. In all honesty, he couldn't have wished for more suitable parents. Drop Zona in 30 inches. Miss Martian voice sounded through the ship, snapping Naruto out of his thoughts. It seems they were approaching the assigned location. I'm ready, Aquilad's voice said silently, followed by his abrupt jump from the underside of the ship into the ocean below, no doubt to hack the motion sensors by approaching it from the ocean. He watched as the Atlantean used a device to hack the sensors and inform the team. Aquilad to team, the motion sensors have been patched. The data is now in continuous loop, move in. Acknowledged. The bioship moved over the island and into the dense forest ahead, safely hovering above a small clearing. The black-winged stallion followed the bioship and hovered right next to it, while the redhead king looked on serenely. Miss Martian, Robin, Kid Flash quietly exited the underside of the bioship. Naruto smiled in amusement when Superboy jumped down upon them with the grace of Meteor, creating a small crater under his feet. That boy just couldn't control the aggressive side of his Kryptonian DNA. Miss Martian, Robin, Kid, Superboy, switch to infrared and see if you are being followed, Aqualad said through the comlink. Kid Flash lowered his red goggles over his eyes and looked around the forest, looking for any heat signatures. His face lit up in realization when he saw a group of heat signatures moving towards the direction opposite to them. They're a squad coming, but not towards us apparently. There are 2 of them. It looks like they'll find each other before they find us, Superboy interjected, using his X-ray vision to scan the surrounding forest. As soon the words left his mouth, a series of sounds eerily similar to guns firing resonated throughout the forest, signifying the 2 squads meeting. Kid Flash turned towards Batman's sidekick, only to see an empty space where Robin should have been. The red-headed king knew he had to talk with him about that particular unpleasant habit of his. Naruto looked towards the scene where the Cobra cult and Bane as well as his followers were firing at each other relentlessly. Naruto slowly walked through the forest towards the fighting scene with a calm look on his face. Getting rid of this Bane character now would be an excellent opportunity, considering his busy schedule. His sudden appearance from the woods apparently caused the fighting between the 2 sides to stop, as they looked at him expectantly. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can someone kindly direct me toward the one named Bane?" he asked calmly with a friendly smile on his face. The Calm King created an invisible barrier around the area so that the young sidekicks wouldn't accidentally stumble upon the scene. He had no intention of having them witness death so early in their lives. Bane grunted in annoyance. "What do you want?" "Greetings, young one. My apologies, but I'm afraid you are going to die here," Naruto answered in his usual calm and smiling tone, causing Bane to growl in anger. "It seems to me that it is you who is ready to die," Bane retorted in anger, using the steroids stored in the small glove-like device to transform his body into a bulky and muscular man. Roaring in anger, he rushed towards the still smiling and calm man. As soon as he reached the redhead, the drug-enhanced criminal lifted his right hand and rammed it forward, intent on crushing the tall man who had the audacity to mock him with empty threats of death. Bane stumbled back in mind-numbing shock and pain when the bones in his hand were crushed with a sickening crunch as soon as his hands touched the still redhead. He had to use all his lifelong battle-hardened pain tolerance and endurance to stop himself from screaming out in agony when he looked down at his revoltingly mutilated hand. The fingers were twisted and turned towards his wrist. In fact, his whole forearm up to the elbow was twisted and turned like it had been through a grinding machine. Jumping back with a pained grunt, he gave his shocked men a discreet signal to start firing. The silent signal snapped the frightened men from their stupefied stupor as they reached for their guns and pointed it at the still calmly smiling redhead. However, that seemed to have been the wrong action they could have possibly taken, as the bullets they had fired returned back to them with twice the speed and power, igniting in flames from the sheer force of the air fraction. Bane looked on with shock and a little bit of fear as his whole squad was killed, more like cut in half by their own weapons. Just how a bullet even managed to cut someone in half, he would never find out. The Cobra cult had remained silent throughout the proceeding. However, they snapped into attention when they witnessed the attack on the redhead and its ineffectiveness. They couldn't let someone as dangerous as this one live, seeing as he could prove a threat to their god. With a silent agreement of attacking the redhead, they slowly reached for their plasma guns, only for the ground beneath them to open like the mouth of giant beast and swallow them whole, never to be seen again. Naruto gave the slightly shaking Bane a look of curiosity and fascination, as if he was a mystery he couldn't understand. "How do you feel about the death of your comrades? Does it sadden you? Anger you? Or maybe you don't feel anything at all about their deaths and are more focused on how to survive?" He of course knew what he felt and thought, not because he could read his mind or look into his twisted soul, but rather from the expression on his face, the sweat dropping down his forehead and the slight shaking of his knees. You don't live for countless millenniums and not know how to read someone like an open book. Perhaps the criminal had never seen someone redirect someone's attack back at them with twice the speed and power, or someone able to split the earth in half and let it swallow a whole squad of trained soldiers without moving a muscle. "What's the matter, child? Can't decide how to survive this battle?" Is your strength-enhancing steroid not able to help you? Naruto asked calmly, as if he wasn't in any hurry to finish the battle. Bane now looked more confused than scared. The words, young one and child, said by this man were truly confusing. The redhead didn't look that old, in fact he looked younger than him, and yet he was calling him a child. That aside, the man obviously was invulnerable, if his terribly twisted and deformed had anything to say about it. The other two abilities he had shown were simply not in his database. He had no one listed in his records with the ability to manipulate Earth or simply reflect bullets, neither a hero nor a villain. The smiling and regal face of pure confidence and the constant aura of power oozing off of him were suffocating, not to mention the bone-crushing otherworldly pressure settling on his shoulders. Just what had he gotten himself into? It seems like you are unable to satisfy my growing curiosity in regards to your kind, Naruto said with something akin to disappointment and walked away, causing Bane to look both confused and relieved to have been spared. His momentary thoughts of relief were soon shattered like a fragile glass when he lost feelings in his hands and feet, prompting him to look at his body organs with horror. His hands and feet were slowly turning to sand, slowly and gradually moving up to his abdomen and chest, until it reached his head. The last picture of the famous criminal mastermind was his face frozen in horror, a silent scream etched on his face before the wind carried it to place unknown. An hour later Naruto floated in the serenely star-littered sky, with the full moon shining brilliantly as always as he looked on below at the sidekicks trying to come up with a new plan to infiltrate and prevent the shipment of the dangerous newly developed drugs. Killing needlessly had always been a nuisance to him. Why kill someone who is not even able to harm you? Why harm someone when he has no intention of harming you? Taking that into account, the death of Bane would help in more than one way. First of all, the strength-enhancing drugs would be stopped, meaning no adults or teenagers being tricked into thinking it would be for their body benefit. He was not only an illegal drug producer, he was also a contract killer like the rest of them, assassinating people just to keep their mouths shut, so that his dirty secrets remained secrets. On a side note, it would give Batman more time to relax if there was one less criminal to deal with. Coming back to the sidekicks, they had failed at their first attempt to steal or destroy the new drugs. The cause of their failure had apparently been due to their lack of teamwork and lack of a qualified leader. Batman had been right to leave the selection of the team leader to the team itself. He had given them the authority to choose a suitable leader from amongst themselves, trying to figure out who they would choose and to see if their selection was a valid one. Naruto smiled when they chose Aqualad to lead the team, seeing as he was the only logical and suitable choice for a team leader. He had been the one to safely escort them outside enemies' territory in order to come up with a sound plan. The sound of a helicopter approaching the island reached his ears. He didn't even bother to look, already knowing who was sitting in it. Looking down now, Superboy seemed to be the decoy for the team, giving them time to successfully infiltrate the warehouse where the shipment was stored. That decision seemed to have been the wrong one, since there were some of Cobra's minions guarding the shipment. The resulting commotion between the team and the Cobra cult caught the attention of the rest as they raced towards the warehouse. Oh well, it seems he had to interfere one way or the other. Raising a finger towards the large and strangely deformed humanoid creature currently fighting Superboy _ no doubt a product of the new drug _ he sent a silent and invisible blast of lightning energy, burning and electrocuting the massive creature to a crisp. The look on Superboy's face was quite amusing and expected. How would you feel if your opponent was suddenly fried like a chicken right in front of you without even knowing the source of the attack? He had to give the clone credit for getting over his surprise and taking advantage of the momentary distraction caused by the sudden death of the creature. That momentary distraction gave the team the advantage they needed to overcome the superior number of the enemy. The arrival of Sportsmaster was an expected but unwelcomed surprise, for the team anyway. They soon lost their advantage and Sportsmaster took off with the shipment. Naruto gave the helicopter a sideway glance, instantly lighting it up in flames. While he could kill the man without even batting an eyelash, he needed him alive for now in order to take the one simple of the Cobra venom to the light and for the pieces to smoothly fall into place. Taking someone out at the early stage of a game was not entertaining at all. The Redhead King watched as the masked man jumped from the damaged and flaming helicopter with the only undamaged simple of the new Cobra venom in his hand. Seeing as their objective was fulfilled, the team retreated one by one, slowly dispatching the bold ones trying to capture them. Naruto slowly floated down to the ground when the team entered the bioship and flew away, with more questions than answers. The Cobra cult suddenly was on the defensive when a harmlessly smiling red-headed man floated down from the sky without a care in the world. The man was dressed like their own lord, red skin-tight shirt, black leather pants, segmented wristbands as well as red boots, long red hair and a red cape fluttering in the soft wind. Cobra gave his tense minions a silent signal to stop them from firing. He may have lost a lot today, seeing as his factory was damaged by mere children, not to mention his honor and dignity blasted away in front of his partners. However, he still had to keep his stance of a powerful deity in front of others. Identify yourself. One of the minions shouted in irritation. Greetings, my name is Destiny. I am here as your executioner, Naruto greeted pleasantly, instantly putting the already tense soldiers even more on guard as they pointed their plasma gun at him threateningly. He had the audacity to threaten their god. What insolence! You dare address a god in such a manner, Cobra said with a frown, finally letting his irritation show. My sincere apologies, I had no idea I was addressing a deity when I spoke those words, Naruto explained calmly, all the while smiling harmlessly, not at all bothered by the expected show of hostility, though my mistake could be clearly justified due to the fact that you apparently have minions to protect you. Cobra frowned even harder. I have no need for them. They simply obey me like all creatures of the world should and would eventually. Pardon my disrespect, but I see no evidence of your self-proclaimed godhood, considering you were outsmarted and defeated by children, Naruto stated curiously. It was so amusing messing with these kind of individuals. Cobra was slowly but surely getting angry if the sudden redness of his face and the clenching of his fists were any indication of that fact. He couldn't really blame him, seeing as the man himself knew his false proclamation of godhood. You dare question my actions? Kill him. Naruto smiled delicately and serenely walked through the countless blast of plasma firing towards him relentlessly without a care in the world. The look on Cobra's face was calm, though he couldn't fool his ancient eyes. On the inside, the man was practically shaking like a leaf. Cobra backed away discreetly, as not to appear too obvious that he was retreating from the calmly approaching man. His plasma guns should have been more than enough to deal with a lowly human, yet this calmly smiling redhead was walking through it like they weren't scorching plasma, but merely a shower of flower petals raining down upon him. He knew he should have upgraded his troops' weapons, in order to properly deal with the likes of Superman and this man. Why back away? Aren't you a deity? Shouldn't you force me to submit to your will? The calm and smiling way he was asking those infuriating questions was getting on his nerves. The calm and curious glint in his piercingly narrow blue eyes was disrespectful. The way he was looking at him as if he was an interesting creature he could not understand, as if he was an endangered animal being studied by curious bystanders in a zoo, was angering him to no end. I would like a proof of your godhood, to see what the power of a deity would look compared to mine. I need not stoop myself so low that I would submit to the whims of a lowly creature, Cobra retorted snappishly, getting angrier by the second. He would not be disrespected by the likes of him. That means you can't do it. I have to say I'm greatly disappointed, Naruto stated with a sigh. The firing had stopped to witness the conversation between their lord and the strangely powerful man. Some of them were starting to wonder if their belief and faith in him as a true deity had been a correct one, seeing as he was shaking like a leaf in front of the redhead. The fact that he hadn't been able to provide a proof of his self-proclaimed godhood wasn't helping matters any. Some of them were wondering just how they hadn't asked that same question the redhead had asked. Seeing the uncertainty in his minions' faces, Cobra knew he had to fight in order to regain his lost dignity. If he didn't, he would eventually lose all his followers. Without uttering a word, he threw his black cloak away and sped towards the calmly approaching man with an angry scowl. However, before he could attack, a firm hand shot up and grabbed him by the throat, lifting him up like a mere toy. Racing towards your opponent deprived of any sort of plan or strategy, not to mention knowing any of his weakness isn't befitting of a deity. You ought to have knowledge of his weakness in every move before he even makes them, Naruto said calmly, unhurriedly. Squeezing the struggling man like a lemon, considering the fact that you can't seem to provide me with a solid substantiation of your self-proclaimed godhood. I have no choice but to end your existence. However, it seems this island needs to vent its suppressed anger by doing that itself. Naruto let go of the panting and wheezing man as he dropped to his hands and knees, his followers not even bothering to help, seeing as they were too transfixed on the sight of the redhead king floating in the sky, his cape and long red hair fluttering in the wind while the full moon shined brightly behind him. As a deity of nature itself, he knew their grief and agony more than anyone. He understood their feelings. The smoke and the poisonous gases from the factory had killed more than enough of their kind for them to simply stay silent. It just goes to show just how ungrateful humans are. The island had given them a place to stay and live without being hunted and killed, yet they had repaid that act of kindness by contaminating its vegetation and land. You have my permission, Naruto said with a fond smile and felt their aura of gratitude and happiness. With his job done, Naruto flew away, knowing the island would exact its revenge as agonizingly slow as possible. Cobra and his cult would wish they had never been born. Cobra and his cult looked on with a confused look on their faces, wondering what the redhead meant by that as he flew away without even looking behind him. They soon got their answer when the trees and small plants of the island were suddenly brought to life, slithering and flickering towards them like snakes. The rocks and seemingly unmovable boulders suddenly developed humanoid bodies, red menacing eyes and spiky body parts. Cobra and his cult felt as if they had been dropped in hell. The last thing they ever saw was the flashing of lightning in the sky and the attack of the hungry rocky and plant beasts as they descended on them like a pack of wolves on a helpless deer. Thank you.